In this chapter, we're going to be covering Google Webmaster Tools. Google Webmaster Tools is a piece of software that Google's put out that really allows you to find out how Google's looking at your site, how fast they're crawling it. It lets you submit a sitemap and do a number of other cool things that will really help you in the long run with your search engine optimization efforts. If you'll remember from last time, we set up Google Analytics. If you go back to the SEO checklist module and go to track your visitors, here are the things that we just completed. We signed into your Google Analytics account, we created an analytics for your website, we pasted that code into the Google Analytics module for Drupal, and we authenticated the site with Google Analytics. We verified everything was working, everything was, and so now you're just going to click Save, and now the SEO checklist module remembers that it's been done, and all that's well and good. Now let's look at another thing. It's called the Google Webmaster Tools. If you go to google.com/webmasters/tools, then you'll get a screen that looks very similar to this. And again, this is if you're logged in, which again I am, lullabotvideo@veloci.com. What I want to do is I want to add my new site to my Google Webmaster Tools account. I go here, I click Add a Site. Again, I'm a copy and paste kind of a guy. I'm going to go over here to my domain, copy it out, paste it in, and click Continue. Great. Now it's added it. It says not verified. Verification is a way that Google uses to make sure that you're the owner of the website, because they're going to be sharing some information about where the visitors come from and how many clicks the site's getting. They're going to actually give that information to you through Google Webmaster Tools, and they don't want just anybody to have that. So they make you verify the site before you can move forward. So we're going to do that, and it gives you three options here: a meta tag, an HTML file, or a DNS record. Now, over back at my Drupal site, there is a really handy tool, and it's called the Site Verification module. And I'm going to go to my modules. I scroll down to Other, and there it is, Site Verification. Turn it on, click Save. And what this tool does is it allows you to create the HTML files or the meta tags or the things that you need in order to verify your site with Google. So instead of having to try and create that file and upload it via FTP and try to figure out how to work around the Drupal file system, this module does it all for you. It's very straightforward. It's under Site Building, Site Verifications. And there's my list there. I don't have any verifications that I've done, and so I'm going to add one. Simply click Add Verification, select your search engine, click Next. We're going to go down, and what I'm going to use is the verification file. And they all work pretty much the same, but I think this one's pretty straightforward. It's download this file, and it gives you a file name, upload it to your site, confirm it's successful by visiting this page, and then click to verify. So I don't really need to download the file. It's an empty file, and they give you the file name here, and that's what I need, is that file name. So I'm going to copy that, go back to my site and into the Site Verification module, paste it into the file field there, click Save, wait for it to save, and then I should be able to verify it by clicking this link. And there it is. This is the verification page. This would not show up if that URL was not working. So the Site Verifications module has done all the hard work for us. Now I can go back to Webmaster Tools, and I can say Verify. And it says we weren't able to verify your site at yourdrupalsite.com. So I guess that file was important. The contents of that file was important. Not surprised at all. They change this kind of stuff all the time. So let's go ahead and go and grab that verification file. I'm just going to save that, go to my Finder here, go to my downloads, and I've got all my downloads going in here. I'm going to take a quick look at that file and see what they're actually adding in there now. Okay, they actually just doubled up this exact same information. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that out of there. Go back to my browser, site verifications module. Let's edit that up and paste that right in there. That should do it for me. Let's go back to Webmaster Central. Try it again. Bingo. Okay, now we're verified. So we have Google Webmaster Tools verified on our yourdrupalsite.com. However, there's really not much data there. It's not a live active site. We're really kind of using it for demonstration purposes for the video. So I thought what I'd do is show you some real data from Veloci.com. We've had Google Webmaster Tools installed for several years, and there's a lot of good data there. So let's just go through it and I'll show you how it works. This is the dashboard, and this kind of gives us a snapshot and insight into kind of what's going on with the site. As you can see, search queries, SEO is the #1 query that generates impressions on our site. There's some other ones here. I'm not even sure why Cookie Monster is one of the top search queries for Veloci.com, but I like cookies. I'm wearing blue today. Maybe that has something to do with it. I seriously doubt it. But in any case, there are always going to be some interesting things here. I wrote an article that talked about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders last year and some interesting things about that. So yes, of course, I show up for hot cheerleaders. But in any case, search engine marketing, SEO, search engine optimization, these are clearly my industry-specific terms. If you go down, you can kind of look and see if there are any crawl errors. Crawl errors are errors that are generated when Google's bot comes through your site. So if I click on this, it'll show me, okay, these, for whatever reason, these are maybe some old links or something that I've taken down. Maybe they're still showing up on my sitemap somewhere. So I would need to go take care of these and make sure that these crawl errors aren't showing up. It also will give me crawl errors in my sitemaps or pages that are restricted by the robots.txt file. And some of these you want. So like a restricted page, like the comments, comment replies, things like that. I've restricted those because the only thing that's on the comment reply page is a form that you fill out to post a comment. Well, I don't want to index my exact same piece of content with the Drupal form beneath it. And so this is, with the robots.txt file, it's saying, hey, don't crawl these. And that's built into Drupal. It's automatically built into the Drupal robots.txt file, so that's good. Links to my site. This page shows me that there are 602,000 links coming into the homepage of my site, and then there are thousands of other links coming into other pages. And then it tells me here my sitemaps and how many pages are showing up in my sitemaps, and that's kind of the dashboard. If you want to dive deeper, then you go over here to these side links. Let's talk about those. The site configuration section consists of 5 different links, and we'll just go through them from the top. The first is sitemaps. A sitemap is a text file that contains a link to every single page on your website. We can automatically generate these using the sitemaps module, and we're going to talk about that module later in the video. But this is where, after you've generated that sitemap, this is where you would go to submit it, and it'll tell you things like what's the type of sitemap, like an RSS feed could be a sitemap, or if you've actually generated your own XML sitemap. It tells me when it was most recently downloaded by Google. It tells me how many URLs were included in that sitemap, and then of those URLs, how many are showing up in Google's search index. These numbers will often be different. That's not an indication that there's a problem. Sometimes there are pages in your site that are too similar to other pages, and Google just says, well, I'm going to take this one. This is obviously the main page. You can use things like canonical links and things like that to help Google make those determinations. The next section is the crawler access section. And what this is if you have content that you don't want Google to crawl. For example, the comment reply section that we kind of showed you that all those pages were restricted by Google, you can add them to the robots.txt file. And Drupal does a fairly decent job of blocking out major sections of the admin screens and certain areas that you really don't want Google's crawler to index because they're not really meaningful to people who are searching on your site. And the way that you do that is through a robots.txt file. The changes that you make to a robots.txt file could have unintended effects. And so after you make that change, you want to come here to Google's Webmaster Tools. You want to go down and test your robots.txt file. Here is your robots.txt file. This is pulled straight from my site. I can edit it here for testing purposes, but changes I make here are not actually affecting the real robots.txt file that's sitting on my site. Let's go take a look at that real quick. So if I go to yourdrupalsite.com and I just go to robots.txt, there's my robots.txt file for this site. Now what you're seeing on Webmaster Tools is the robots.txt file for Velaci.com. So I'll just show you that one as well. And you can go to almost every website out there now has a robots.txt file, and it gives directives to the search engines about what pages you want to show up and what pages you don't. And so there it is. Now this Webmaster tool, it checks, it pulls in your robots.txt file, and then it gives you this little section down here, and it says, hey, specify the URLs that you want to test. So I've got Velaci.com in there. Let's test Velaci.com/admin, which is the admin section of my Drupal site. And let's see if the Google robots are respecting my robots.txt file. And so we're going to do the Google bot, and we can select some different ones here. We'll just leave it as Googlebot Mobile, and we'll hit test, and let's see what happens. So we're going to get our test results down here at the bottom. Velaci.com is allowed. Thank goodness. I want my website to show up in Google. But here I see the Velaci.com/admin is blocked by line 44, disallow/admin, directed as a directory, and specific files may have different restrictions. So it's showing me that this worked. My robots.txt file actually blocked that particular page from the Google crawler. The next section is called site links. Site links are the, if you've ever been to Google and searched on, say, the name of a company, a lot of times it'll come up with that company's listing at the top, and then beneath it there are a bunch of little links in a couple of columns, and those links are to deeper sections of the site, like the careers page or the products page or something like that. And those little links are called site links. Let's take a look at some site links. If I go to my browser and I just search for Velaci, you can see here we are, the Drupal SEO company, and then these links right here are the site links. And they're links to different sections, our careers page, version 3 of the SEO checklist, there's a press release that we did, things like that. And you have some control over those. You can actually go here and say, you know what, I don't want the link to the About Us to be part of the site links, and you could click block and block it. Well, I kind of do, so I'm not going to click it this time, but clearly you have some control. If Google is going out and saying, hey, we're going to use your pictures from your last year's Christmas party as one of your site links, well, maybe you don't want that to be the first thing that people see when they come and find your site in Google. So you can turn those, you can block those off. The next section is called change of address. Change of address you're only going to use very infrequently, at least I hope and recommend that you're not changing the domain name of your website all the time. This is something that oftentimes business owners will have specific business reasons for changing the URL of their website. Like there was a merger, or maybe the website was named after a group of partners and one of the partners left, and they want to change the name of the site. And frankly, it's something that's necessary sometimes, but if you can avoid it, I strongly encourage you to never, for SEO purposes anyway, never change the domain name of your site. It'll actually drop you in the search listings. It could take 3 to 6 months to get you back up, but if you do, Plan it out very carefully, make sure you have the redirects done properly, and come here to Google's Webmaster Tools and let them know that you're doing that. It will help a lot. It won't fix all the problems, but at least with Google, it will help you a tremendous amount. And you can tell it where your site is redirecting to, and what kind of 301s you're using and how that's all going to work. It's just a great way to communicate with Google about a potentially traumatic change in the way that your company and your website operates. The next section is called Settings. And this is where you have a little bit of control over how Google perceives your site. So for example, you could say, hey, I only want to target users in a particular geographic region. So if you had say you had the I18N module installed and you have created a French version of your website that was under a different domain name, you could actually register that version of your website, go in here and say, you know what, I only want to target people who are in Canada for my site. Now, I'm actually kind of scared right now because I have that checked. I'm not going to do that to myself, but you could. These are the kind of things that you would use this kind of tool for. Preferred domain, you want to set this. If some people like the www, other people like to have it a little cleaner and not show that. You want to set this. If you've made adjustments to your .htaccess file in your Drupal installation and you've changed this setting there, make sure you come to Google Webmaster Tools and make the same change here so that you have the consistent message in both places. Crawl rate. This is where you can kind of tell Google, hey, I want you to crawl my site really, really fast, sucking down large amounts of data all at the same time. My server can handle it, we're good. Or you can actually say to Google, you know what, I have an old server, or I'm on a shared hosting solution, you know, slow down. Don't actually crawl my site quite so fast because it slows down my website and I can't have that happen. If you want to set those settings yourself, which Google recommends that you don't do this, but if you want to, you could click this link and then you can use the slider to say, hey, you know, it's okay, crawl me faster, crawl me slower, and you know, it actually will allow you to tell Googlebot how fast it's going to crawl your site. They will determine based on statistics how fast your site's operating and whether or not they should speed up or slow down the crawling of your site. They don't want to pull your site down. They want your site to function perfectly, because if they put your site in the Google's index and somebody searches and finds your site and clicks on it, and your site is running really, really slow because Googlebot happens to be visiting at the same time, well, that visitor is going to be very dissatisfied, and not only dissatisfied with your site, but dissatisfied with Google for sending them there. So it's in Google's best interest to make sure your site runs well. And so I recommend that you leave that setting alone. And then the last thing on here is not that relevant to Drupal users. It's called parameter handling. Parameter handling, if you remember a little bit ago, we were talking about clean URLs and dirty URLs and the question mark Q equals and everything that came after that question mark Q equals, those are called parameters. And this is a place where if you had a site that was just putting out a whole bunch of parameters, you could go and define what those were and help Google understand how your site operates. Fortunately for Drupal users, it's not necessary. We've turned on clean URLs. That's eliminated the issue with parameters, and we don't really need to change anything here. And so I haven't made any changes, so there's no save button. If I had, you would notice a save button would pop up and I can make those changes. But that's the site configuration section. The next section is called Your Site on the Web. In this section, you can look at things like search queries, which show you exactly what search terms people have been using to find your site. It'll even let you click this, open it up, and see exactly which page that the person came into your site on. So as you can see with Veloci, and we saw this before, we have a lot of extraneous search terms that are really not that relevant to what we do. But you can also star the ones that are relevant. So you can put a star next to the ones that are related to the kind of work that you do. And what it'll do is it will aggregate those here at the top. You can click the starred setting, eliminating all the extraneous ones, and just show me what's going on with the important search terms in my site. And you can kind of see on a day-to-day basis what the impressions are, how many clicks your site is getting, and that can be really helpful information. Some of you may be wondering what an impression is. If your website shows up in a Google query, then that's considered an impression. It means that some visitor saw your site on the page. They may not have clicked the link to go through to your site, but they saw it. So let's say we go here to Google and I search for the term SEO. I'm not going to be the #1 guy, but maybe down on the page. Maybe I'm on page 2. There you are. So I'm right now 13th in Google for the phrase SEO, and because I came to this page and my site is on there, this is considered an impression. So now I've increased my impressions by 1. If I click through here, now I've increased my click-through rate by 1. So there's our, that's what an impression is. You know what a click is. I think that's pretty clear. Click-through rate kind of tells you, what the average click-through rate is when somebody searches on SEO. About 1% of those people come and visit Veloci.com. And my average position, and this could be all across the world in all the different data centers, was 49th for the period of time over the last month or so. And this kind of tells you, gives you some good information. You'll look at ones where you're showing up pretty high, Drupal clean URLs, that's good. Providing good information there. And it helps you determine, what, hey, if I'm 49th on average and I'm getting 18,000 impressions, that's pretty good. Maybe I should try to get in the top 10. And I wonder how many impressions and clicks I would get from that if I was that much higher. And it just gives you data that you can work with. The next section is called Links to Your Site. These are links from websites that are just out there somewhere in search engine land or in the web, the world of the web. And somebody's written an article about you, they have linked to one of your products, they blogged about you or something, and they put a link on their website that pointed back to you. And this is where it tells you the pages of your site and how many people have linked to that particular page. So Veloci.com's been around for 3 or 4 years. We have a tremendous amount of links coming into the front page of our site. My page, and this, when you see just something like this, then it means that that's the base URL .com/ and then whatever that is. So it's this, and then you add this onto it. So let me just show you what that looks like. Then this is the page that it's talking about. And you can see that I have 7,176 links coming into that one particular page. The anchor text of a link is the actual clickable, usually blue and underlined words that show up on somebody's website. It's the visible text to the visitor. And that anchor text has a lot to do with how Google organizes your website, where they categorize you and place you in their search index. So this page tells you that the #1 anchor text for external links to my site is for the phrase Drupal SEO in these different formats. And that's obviously on purpose. It's obviously what we do. And and then search engine optimization, different ways of saying and formatting that, SEO, and it just goes through and kind of shows you what the different anchor texts that people are using to link to our site. The next section is keywords. Keywords section are the most common words that Google finds when they crawl your site. So for us, SEO and Drupal, I'm very glad those are the top 2 terms that Google finds when they crawl our site. But there's other terms on here, and it can be very helpful in helping you determine, hey, what am I really communicating here? What am I telling Google and the world that my site's all about? Because if you go here and you don't see the important key terms that you're trying to attract people to your site with, then you've got some issues. You need to go make those changes on your site. The next section is the internal links section. Internal links are links that are inside your own site. So it's a page of your site that links to some other page of your site. And sometimes that can be very helpful to understand the structure of your website and see kind of how Google is looking at your site and how it's performing. So for example, Drupal 6 Search Engine Optimization book, it has 3,347 internal links on my website. That means there are 3,347 other pages on my site that link to this one page. You might be wondering, did I go through my site and add 6,317 links to my blog? And no, I didn't do that. Drupal's menu system, when you create a menu link and you have that menu show up on every single page of your website, well, every single one of those links is going to count here as an internal link. You know, in the blog, we link to the blog a lot from other pages and other sections. It shows up in a couple of different menus and different ways that we use the site. And then, of course, every blog post we write kind of self-references the blog itself. So in addition to being a link on every single page, it also may have 2 or 3 links that are kind of self-referential links to other blog posts and other things. And so you end up getting these really heavy link concentrations into certain sections of the site. And you'll find that those pages tend to do very well in Google, and Drupal helps you manufacture those links. It's not a good link building strategy. I mean, it's not that alone is not going to get you up in the search engines, but at the very least it tells Google, hey, these are what I think are the most important sections of my site. The next section here is called subscriber stats. And this is interesting because it tells you how many people are actually subscribed to different RSS feeds in your Drupal site. And so, but I can go here and I can see these are Google subscribers, which are people who use the Google Reader. So it's a very small subset of the entire web. But I can see, hey, at least among Google subscribers, I have 52 readers. And then you see these yes please buttons, which I think are kind of cute. Yes please. You can say, hey, use this RSS feed as a sitemap. So remember when we were back under site configuration, sitemaps, and you saw these as RSS? Well, if you were wondering, hey, how do I submit my RSS feed as a Google sitemap? Well, you do it here under the subscriber stats. In any of these feeds I could submit as a sitemap. Really the only one that matters is my blog, and you know what, I guess my podcast too, and I'll go ahead and submit that one. And what that'll do is it'll update much more regularly than my XML sitemap, which may only update every few days. My RSS feed, it gets updated I wouldn't say instantly, but within a few hours of when I post a new blog post, it'll now start showing up in Google's index. So this is a great way to make sure that all your good content is showing up in Google. And you know what? Since we're talking about it, if you're in Drupal and you're running Drupal Commerce and you have an e-commerce site, and you create an RSS feed, and anytime you add a new product to your site, it shows up in that RSS feed. Go here, make sure that it's in here, click the yes please button, and then when you add products to your site, very quickly they'll start showing up in Google's index. The next section is called diagnostics. Diagnostics is where you want to come if you're having a problem with your site. You might have done a search on google.com and there was some kind of like this red text that says Google has detected that this site has bad stuff on it, and your computer is going to crash if you visit this site. You go forward at your own risk, and there's all these disclaimers and everything. I'm sure their legal department was all over that one. But if you go to Google and you find your site and you've got that kind of error, well, you come here and you can go to malware, and it'll tell you any kind of problems that it has detected with your site and give you some suggestions on how to fix it. And I'd love to say that that's never happened to me before, but you know, if you are on the web and you have several websites for a long enough period of time, somebody's going to hack in, and it's very, very important that you know that and that you can see and solve that problem quickly. So this is a nice tool. Because sometimes the malware will go up on your site, but it'll be invisible. People won't actually see it, but it's visible to the search engines. The next section is called crawl errors, and this is a list of errors that the Googlebot has found when it went and crawled through your site. So the Googlebot was going to this page. I'm not sure why we have this page. I'm not sure what's on that page, but it's not finding the page. The page is not there. Then in my sitemaps, I may be submitting some things that are maybe old or maybe no longer there. I might need to go update my sitemap. Or I'm submitting it my sitemap, but for some reason it's restricted by the robots.txt file. And I'm not going to spend time right now to go figure out why that is. But now that I'm seeing that it's there, I am going to go figure out why it is, because I don't want to have any pages that I'm explicitly saying to Google, hey, this is in my sitemap. I want you to crawl this. Please go look at it. And then also at the same time block them with my robots.txt file. It's just, it's mixed, it's a conflicting message. I don't want to have that. So I want to make sure that anything that I have in my XML sitemap, I'm also allowing Google to go see. And then if you're, have a mobile version of your site, if you've submitted any of these types of sitemaps, it will actually give you any errors that are found there. If you have a news site and you're showing up on Google News, you've submitted a Google News sitemap, which there is a Drupal module to do that very thing, and you have errors in that sitemap, they'll show up here. So again, a very nice tool to use. The next section is called Crawl Stats. Crawl Stats is it's just statistics about the crawler. It's statistics about when the Googlebot has crawled your site. And it kind of shows you how many pages a day that Googlebot's pulling in, how many kilobytes of data that the Googlebot's downloading from your site, the time spent downloading the page in milliseconds, and what the slowest page was and what the fastest page was. And obviously, I'm seeing a trend here. Kind of since May, my site's kind of gradually gotten a little bit slower, and that could be because traffic has gone up. It could be because maybe I'm on a shared host and that server is kind of getting fuller and fuller. This is where you can kind of see that data and you can make some decisions about, hey, what am I going to do? Should I turn on caching? Should I go download the Boost module? Or should I go buy the Lullabot speed up your site video and make sure that my site is using all of those techniques and tactics to be as fast as I possibly can? Which you should, by the way, do that. But this actually tells you, hey, I've got issues, I need to go solve them. The next section is called HTML suggestions, and they're just that. Google goes through, looks at your site, they parse through the whole thing, and they kind of give you some suggestions on some ways that you can improve the way that your site works. Like, hey, you've got some missing title tags, which of course not. We're using Drupal. Once we go through the title tag section of the video, you'll make sure you don't have any missing title tags too. But here's a nice one, the duplicate title tags. I've actually got 67 duplicate title tags. I don't know what those are. But I can go through and I can go, okay, wow, on my blog, it's somehow finding these query stringed pages and my title tags are duplicate on there. So I'm going to spend some time and go dig through and kind of get rid of those duplicate title tags. Now notice it said suggestions. They're not saying that you have these problems and therefore you're not going to show up in the search engine. They're not saying that at all. They're just saying, it might be better if you had a unique title tag for every single page on your site. And, you want to try and do that if you can. Let's back up. Long title tags, if you have a title tag that's 50 words long or something, Google's not going to read all that. They're going to read the first 8 words or 10 words. And so you want to make sure that you've written your title tags in a proper way. And again, we're going to talk about that later in the video. But notice something here. This is important. Of all of the HTML suggestions, 5 of them are related to title tags. Just think about that. Title tags are extremely important to Google, and they want to make sure you're getting your title tags right. So make sure that you pay attention to this report. And then finally, non-indexable content. If you have some new file formats or something that Google's crawling and they don't know what to do with it, it's going to show up as just a list here of here's that content, we don't know what this is. The next section is called labs, and these are kind of new tools that are perhaps not as robust or supported as the other tools that we've looked at as part of Google Webmaster Tools. They're fun. There's new things showing up there all the time. I suggest that you check them out, but of course take everything with a grain of salt. These are kind of like beta tools as far as Google is concerned. So that's Google Webmaster Tools. We've shown you how to install the site verification module on your Drupal site, how to set up Google Webmaster Tools, a lot of the different tools that are there, and how Google's doing their best to communicate to you to help you make your site better. Because, like I said, it's in their best interest to make sure that your site is running really, really well. Now, keep in mind, Google is not the only search engine on the planet. You've also got Yahoo and you've got Bing, and they've kind of merged their search efforts, although that hasn't quite happened yet. It's expected to happen at any time. And that's a significant player. They're going to be, 25-30% of the marketplace. And they also offer their webmaster tools as something that you can add to your site and get some insight from them about what they think your website looks like. Now, for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through their same tools. They're very similar to the Google's tools. They kind of go in a different direction sometimes. They have some different things on there that can be very helpful. And so I recommend that you check them out. You can still use the same site verification module that we used here with Google, with Yahoo, and with Bing. They're going to ask you for some very similar things, a meta tag or upload a file. And so the site verification module really comes in handy when you're interacting with the search engines. Incidentally, once you've set up your site verification, just leave it there. You don't need to go back and delete it after your site's been verified. And in fact, some of the search engines will come back again and again and just double check that the site is still verified. So you want to just leave it there. Don't worry about it. It's not going to affect performance or anything like that. And so that's it for this section. The Google Webmaster Tools it's a key component to the tool belt of any good search engine optimizer.